So I was on a call today with one of my clients, and the subject of shame and guilt came up, and it was something they were suffering with, and really interesting shame and guilt. And I've got some very kind of close hand experience of both, so I thought I'd just take this opportunity to share a few of my thoughts and a few of my kind of comments and little seeds of knowledge or thoughts, whatever you want to call them. It's fear. Shame and guilt are really horrible emotions, and actually behind grief, which I think is probably the worst, I think those two are horrific. Mainly because they're very passive emotions, shame and guilt. Different from things like fear, where it can have a very active it can manifest itself in action, or you can physically see when someone's afraid, and you can generally then support will come. But also things like anger, frustration, rage, they're very active emotions. You can tell when someone's angry, but also when you're angry, you're physically doing something. You're moving, you're clenching your fists, you're stomping, you're getting ready to fight, or whatever it may be. And the very act of that movement and that manifestation of that emotion into a physical thing will kind of pacifies it in some ways. It's like when people put their fist through a door, or kind of go around and just go for a run, or whatever they do to kind of release that anger, release it and get rid of it out of your body. But shame and guilt are very passive, and they manifest themselves in a really destructive way, because it forces you to go inwards. If you're feeling huge amounts of shame and guilt, then you just shut down as a person. You withdraw into yourself, and your thoughts then become consumed, going round and round in circles about your fear. About your shame and your guilt. I really want to say fear all the time. I don't know why. Obviously, having a fear day, but your thoughts about the guilt and the situation that caused the guilt, and the shame, and your impact on someone who's hurt them, if you've hurt someone, for instance, and that shame connected to that can be very consuming, and it's a very silent enemy as well, so it doesn't manifest itself outwardly. So people don't know you're feeling guilty, people don't know you're having shame, but the impact of those two emotions on your ability to live your life, on your ability to experience joy, on your ability just to operate as a human being, can be absolutely massive and very debilitating. So I guess one of the things I'm trying to say really is if you find yourself suffering with shame and guilt regularly, not just because you've done something stupid and you're feeling a bit shameful, but if it's persistent, if it's kind of runs into everything you do, wake up feeling shame and guilt, you go to bed feeling shame and guilt, you spend all day doing what you're doing feeling shame and guilt, then I just urge you to do something about it, because they're so destructive, those emotions. I mean, grief is horrific, and for any of you, and we're all going to experience grief at some point, but for those of you who haven't experienced grief yet, it's crushing. It's absolutely crushing. But there's so much support. When you suffer grief, you get support. Your friends, your family, they come around you. There's lots of grief counselling services. There's lots of help and advice online about grief. But shame and guilt, they're almost like a taboo subject a lot of the time. And they're just as debilitating. They're just as destructive. And you can live with those emotions like grief. You can live with them for years and years and years, and it never gets any better. So really interesting emotions, shame and guilt. And I get a lot of people, and again, I've had first-hand experience of both, and grief for that matter. But that's another story. And there's something that really needs to be tackled, really needs to be looked in. You need to kind of delve into it and try and kind of come to peace with the reason why you're feeling that shame, and face it head on. But so just my thoughts really, and just a plea that if that sounds like you, that you're suffering with those kind of raw emotions on a daily basis, then please reach out to me or to someone, your friends, your doctor, whatever, to try and get some help and resolve that. Because trust me, fear, what am I doing? Guilt and shame will not go away. They will stay with you for the rest of your life. So thanks for watching, and watch this space for more insights and my thoughts on life and things in general, and speak to you soon.